What's up, everybody? It's your boy DJ Hulk Smash, y'all, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast. On this week's episode, Joel and I will take a look at the world of movie news and movie trailers that have dropped throughout the week and commentate on them for you guys, and then we will have our review of Thor Ragnarok, the new Marvel film, the newest edition. When will they ever end? I hope they don't, because, they're kind of cool, you know what I'm saying, yo. Anyways, what are we going to think about the movie? Are we going to like it? Are we going to dislike it? Are we going to disagree? What is going to happen? You're going to have to sit down, relax, and find out. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast, where you didn't really ask for, but hey, we're going to give it to you anyways. This is a podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and, anything about movies. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chase Lee, and hey guys, listen, if you stumbled across the internet to find like some weirdo pumpkin pie recipe that you want to make for your grandmother this Thanksgiving season, and you accidentally came across this movie podcast, and you're not a movie fan, well, hopefully we can convince you to be one, because that's the whole point of this show, guys, to bring you in and make you as passionate about movies as we are. Now, if you're new to the show, welcome. If you are a returning listener, also welcome. Typically what we do on this show is we will go over some movie news and movie trailers that have happened throughout the week, and we will commentate on them for you guys, and then we'll also review a movie that happens on the weekend, and of course, announce the box office results as well to accompany said movies. On this week's episode, episode 206, is the newest installment of the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe from Disney. We have Thor Ragnarok, which is also the third film in the franchise, so that is also really cool. And then, of course, all the movie news and trailers, like I said before. Before we begin, and I introduce my beautiful co-host over there, if you are listening to this on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, wherever you're listening to this, it could be on the toilet, I don't care. If you could just spread this around and let people know this is a decent listening podcast that you can, listen to in the background somewhere, not really pay attention to. But if you spread it around and share it, I would really appreciate that. Spread the love, guys. You know you want to. And speaking of the co-host over there, Joel, how are we doing today?
We're doing good. It's been a busy week. I had my birthday on Thursday, so of course I worked 8 hours first, and then I saw Thor Ragnarok, and that was a lot of fun to do that, because I saw it at a movie house and eatery, so ate dinner, watched the movie. It was a blast, and then immediately, pretty much at work, thrust straight into a sale. So sales are always busy because they stretch 3 days, and everybody comes in. So it's been a busy week. So other than that, been pretty good, except for of course the news coming out of today. That's yet another mass shooting. Is just. It's sad. Other than that, I've had a pretty good week.
Yeah, so. It's unfortunate to hear that stuff, but hopefully, Joel, we can make people forget about the crap in the world just for even a little bit. So, as you guys know, Joel's birthday was on Thursday, so congratulations, Joel. You are 2 months older than me. Go ahead and give yourself a pat on the back, and then go ahead and just tape a giant piece of paper on your back that says, I don't really care. I'm just kidding. That's terrible. No, happy birthday, Joel. Turning almost 30 is quite scary, but you and I are going to welcome it with open arms. Since we're...
What are you talking about? I turned 23. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, Joel, we're both old. Let's not confuse people. All right, so so Joel's birthday was earlier this week, so give him some love, guys. I already did. I sent him a beautiful Twitter message, and I tagged him in it. I felt like I did my duty as a co-host. But it
was a very nice tweet. I appreciated that.
Well, you my podcast fam. I'll call you out. My week has been pretty good. Just kind of playing South Park, The Fractured Butthole the whole weekend. So that pretty much sunk in all my time. So if you thought I had any free time, then you were absolutely mistaking yourself, because that movie will just destroy you and you will have no social life. Didn't really watch any movies. I watched, Stranger Things Season 2, finished that up. That ended up, being pretty good. as far as other movies, I did watch a couple for the first time on Halloween night that I've never seen before. I saw Cube and I saw Pumpkinhead. What a weird freaking mix.
I saw Pumpkinhead years ago. I got to watch that one again. I've never seen Cube, but Pumpkinhead's a lot of fun. So.
Cube, I actually really dug, and Pumpkinhead was an actual interesting idea for a horror film. It's actually a really good idea, but the acting, production design, it just makes it look so cheap, and you're like, ugh, this idea is so good though. So yeah, that's what I did my Halloween night, and of course I saw Thor Ragnarok today. So yeah, in order just to get to that movie, let's get through some movie news. And before, just last thing before we begin, if you are listening to this after we're done recording and whatnot, and you just want to go straight to the movie review, the time description will be down below. So, jumping into some movie news, just like what Joel said, this is not looking good, folks. Every single week you just hear more disgusting stories about Hollywood just being peeled back with another, sexual harassment, sexual assault story. It's just gross, man. But this whole Kevin Spacey thing, it's just getting out of hand. Like Joel and I, when we read the story, it's like, oh, this actor from, Star Trek Discovery is calling him out, and now Netflix, House of Cards is only one more season, and they're going to suspend him, and now they fire him. It's like, this whole roller coaster with Kevin Spacey is just kind of astounding, because every single day there's some new information, new damning information that comes out about this man. And, Joel and I, like I said, we're roughly the same age, and so we've been growing up with this guy ever since we saw or heard him as the villain in A Bug's Life from Pixar. Do you guys remember that? So, I mean, he's been in our lives for quite some time, and when you hear about this stuff, it's just shocking, man, to know that someone that you kind of adored, watching in movies and television shows for all these years, is just now we're seeing the real Kevin Spacey, and now with more allegations, it's getting to a point where you can't really deny these victims anymore. These are true victims that are coming out, speaking out finally, and putting this guy down. And, I don't know what Netflix is going to do, Joel, because right now he's fired. He's off the show. They were into 2 weeks of production on season 6. I'm going to go to you first, and I'm going to ask you, do you think, because I think Variety or Hollywood Reporter, I forgot who put out this article, but they gave a bunch of different scenarios on how they could finish House of Cards. Do you think they should continue it with just Robin Wright? Do you think they should just cancel altogether? Do you think they should kill his character off on the show? What is your mindset about this whole Kevin Spacey thing? I mean, has your respect been lost from him? And then what do you think they should do with the show?
Yeah, I mean, as a person, obviously, there's a lot of respect lost. Generally speaking, with this kind of thing, it's immediately all of my respect is gone. I will say that I've seen this float around some. I don't think that this really changes any of his movies. I've always been a guy who's been able to separate the artist from his roles. So, for instance, American Beauty, the feeling of watching it might be a little weirder now just because of the stuff that's coming out. But we got to remember that there is a separation. We're watching Lester Dodd, not Kevin Spacey, so it doesn't automatically just change the movie. I've seen that floating around a lot. I don't believe it. With House of Cards, I don't watch it. I don't watch the show, so I don't know what kind of plot points they had in season 5 or whatever it was. I think though that it sounds like one of those shows that typically goes for the crazy, whether it's a twist or a weird plot development or whatnot. I think it's a good idea to kill the character off because, from afar it seems like a move that they would have made at some point anyway. I know that the show is known for being ruthless, so perhaps they need to do that just out of nowhere in the show and then go forth with, Robin Wright, make the woman, especially in the face of this news, make the woman the main character. I think that would be a great little middle finger to the whole business. But I mean, yeah, he can't come back from this. It's interesting because we've been seeing a different kind of response to this than the others. Even the stuff from Harvey Weinstein, it was kind of like this slow burn kind of. People were coming out at a deliberate pace, and then he kind of runs off somewhere. Here, it was like immediate, and it shows that there's this whole like big change happening, where the safety of talking about this stuff is a lot higher, and is in a higher state because of the internet, Twitter, social media, basically, is now a safe space for this kind of revelation to come out from people, from survivors of these things. And it's interesting to see how in such a short period of time that whole process has evolved. It's pretty crazy for sure.
Yeah, it's one of those things to where, I mean, you're right. I mean, I can still watch his movies and his TV show, but in the back of my head, it's just going to be looming there. Like, you're going to be thinking about it the whole time, and I think his career's done. It is absolutely a nail in the coffin at this point. I mean, because I was asking Joel, throughout the week, like, what do you think they're going to do with all the money in the world? Like, yeah, he's not really recognizable in the movie, but I mean, that was supposed to be an Oscar push.
Yeah, absolutely, and they've axed that. They've totally removed that from the possibilities. They're gonna campaign just, I guess, as a regular movie. So of course we know with Oscars now. Here's the thing. I mean, it's not going to happen because of this, but we know with Oscars it doesn't have to happen with a campaign. So in some like weird possible world, it could still happen. I don't think it will though, especially considering just how much of a like a touching a hot plate it is with him right now. But I mean, you're right though, because I think that it would take for somebody a bit of like self sort of teaching oneself to kind of just see the character, unless one was directly involved with him, in which case no. But the regular audience member who's going to see a movie is not going to see a movie with Kevin Spacey in it. But if they did, I think that it would take some coaching of oneself to kind of realize, okay, I'm watching somebody who is Kevin Spacey, but really I'm watching a character. Like I was saying, I'm able to do that because I've just been watching movies for so many years. It's just my automatic state of being is to kind of detach from real life. Realize, again, with American Beauty, I'm watching Lester Dodd. I'm not watching Kevin Spacey, because if I watch Kevin Spacey, it's 100 times creepier now that, it's a predator, and this is, a role that Kevin Spacey was drawn to, and we have to, incorporate his character now into that decision. It's all hindsight. But in terms of the casting process, I mean, he's a leper. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen anymore. He can't bounce back, especially considering how bad the response has been, like how strong it's been, I should say.
Yeah, it's one of those things to where I don't know what they're gonna do moving forward with the show, movies. I mean, they're axing a lot of his projects already, but I just have to say
the Gore Vidal thing is just dead. It was already in pre-production or something.
Yeah, for something like that. Like I was just gonna say, like, real quick, and we gotta move on, because I mean, we're not experts. Like we're not. Right. We're just kind of viewing it from a third party perspective. And as far as the Netflix question goes, I know it's gonna sound a little selfish, but I mean, we're 5 seasons deep, and I kind of want to see them just wrap it up. Whether they kill off his character or just something like. I really hope, because like my coworker and I, we watch the show and we theorize about it all the time, and we already know that Claire Underwood at some point is probably going to become president, and Frank Underwood's probably either going to die or be in jail for his crimes. I mean, that's the only 2 ways his character can go. So you can actually do this and get away with it. But yes, they need to be very careful on how they do it, because with this coming out.
Perhaps what they need to do, and this is going to sound weird, and if I get pushed back for this, whatever, I'm just going to say this. So What I feel like they need to do is strike some sort of deal with him to come back for one final appearance in which he dies. Like, and then they kill off the character and we actually see it happen so that it's not just some like off-screen thing. Because, I know that the big like gimmick of the show is that he talks to the camera, and I feel like with that level of, engagement with the actual audience in a fourth wall break kind of way, it would feel really awkward if they just killed him off screen between seasons and then never dealt with it. So I feel like what they need to do, or maybe like get an actor who agrees somehow to play him like motion capture or something, have the character involved for that, few minutes where somebody comes in and assassinates him or something like that in a final sort of way before, totally like just dropping his character entirely. That's what I feel like needs to happen. Some, shows, studios that are producing this usually work this in such an awkward way, and I feel like there needs to be some more, some fairer way to the audience to deal with this. But nevertheless, it's going to be weird. I'm curious to see. I probably now am not going to watch the show just because of just because of that. But it'll be interesting to hear, how they'd handle that because it's such a delicate situation.
Yeah,
and,
like I said, we're not experts, and I know these are really like sensitive topics, but this is going to impact this industry. And if Joel and I are going to continue to do this podcast over this industry, this is going to be one of those kind of ripple effects that's going to finally like blow away all those wolf masks that all these producers have, and we're actually going to see them for who they are. And we need to change. We need to have a cleanse, and we need to get rid of these, predatory assholes.
Yeah, and I just want to reassure our audience, we're not going to just become like this tabloid engine. We're talking about this because it's big, it's in the news, it's something that's going to change something. Eventually, there's going to be eventually, I don't know when, but there's going to be a die down. We're going to find out a lot of things about a lot of people in the next, few months, probably more than that, perhaps. But at some point, it's going to kind of die down because all of them are, or not all of them, but most of them are going to be unveiled. And at that point, I feel like we could probably shift away from it. But
unfortunately, we can't shift away from her because our next story involves the exact same shit. And it's kind of hard to not talk about this since we just talked about this news story like 3 weeks ago. Like, what's going on? So Brett Ratner, basically the douche of Hollywood, he's been accused of sexual assault, and pretty like Olivia Munn's testimony with what she like kind of witnessed from him is just absolutely disgusting. Yeah. Anyways, he was supposed to produce and direct the Hugh Hefner biopic, which is even creepier now knowing all this, with Jared Leto to star, and now that's going to be put on the shelf. It's pretty much going to die. But if they're going to move along with it, they're going to change out people. Here's the difference between Kevin Spacey and Brett Ratner. There's absolutely no difference, but I respected Kevin Spacey from a kind of Hollywood perspective. Now I don't. I had never respected Brett Ratner. I appreciated the stuff he's produced over the past 5 years because his Rat Pack company has produced some great Oscar movies. Now, every time I see that damn R in front of a movie, I'm going to be like, oh, it's Brett Ratner, just kill me now. So I just... Listen, this guy has never appealed to me. His movies, directing-wise, if you watch him in interviews, he just sounds like a douche. And, this doesn't surprise me. I hope this guy, Spacey, Weinstein, all of them, just please go into a disgusting, pit in the bottom of the earth and just stay there. But this doesn't surprise me. He will definitely get kicked off the project. I don't think Jared Leto wants to be attached to it anymore, even if they get a different director, just because of the stench on it now. Yeah, Joel.
We've been hearing essentially whispers of this for years. I always knew that he was a pig, and I've never had any respect for him like you. Again, it's kind of like that detached appreciation for the fact that he gets behind some good projects sometimes. As a producer, usually not really as a director so much. But he was always kind of that weird, abrasive personality in Hollywood that everybody kind of tolerated. but I don't really think I ever actually heard anybody appreciate him. And so this coming out was not a surprise. And you know, it is a slight difference. Although Kevin Spacey kind of lost some points with his trying to come out as a
that definitely like put him down a few pegs.
Yeah, that was a disgusting way to take it on. But yeah, this Brett Ratner thing. It was interesting though because Jared Leto then apparently cleared some stuff up and said that he had never had any intention to play Hugh Hefner.
Joel, that's a total PR move. I will guarantee you as soon as this story broke, his PR team was like, Jared, please get the fuck on the phone and tell them that you were never involved with this. Like,
yeah, because I mean, look at it. It's Jared Leto. He has his own baggage, and that's, you know, it was a gross project, and now, you know, I wouldn't mind a Hugh Hefner biopic at all. I think it's certainly a weird life, very, very controversial.
But now after this story, I hope they distance it and not make it for another 5 years or
completely
so.
Everybody, like anybody else. Literally the opposite of this. Get somebody...
You could get a trash can. If you get the trash can that's in my kitchen right now, that would be a better choice than Brett Ratner.
Get A24 or Jason Blum. You know, we get the feeling from Jason Blum that he's a pretty decent guy. You know, we've seen him in interviews. Obviously, we've proven we don't know people's past, but nevertheless, you know, it appears in all likelihood that the people from A24 are respectable. That Jason Blum's respectable. Get somebody like that, not these, you know, notoriously piggish Hollywood producers who like to cover things up about the past and, you know, all about the bottom line. It's just
Joel,
not a good idea.
I just want to say one last thing and we'll move on. Whenever Brett Ratner goes to jail, he can cover up his ass because he's going to get rat-packed up there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, they do not like these people in prison. So
no, I hope they do some damage. Anyway, so let's move on to some more, you know, not happy news, but kind of confusing news. So Amazon... You know, speaking of sexual assaults, the CEO. Okay, that's a different story, but we're not going to talk about it. Anyways, Amazon wants to do more television shows to kind of compete with Hulu and Netflix. Do you blame them? I don't blame them. And so they want to do a Lord of the Rings TV show. Huh? Okay, so Lord of the Rings is already like 5 days long, so we already got what we needed to in the movies. I don't really understand what you can do with a show. Sure, you could probably make it like Game of Thrones, make it more of like a sci-fi, you know, just epic long fantasy. I get that, but at the same time, we have 3 satisfying movies. We even have 3 satisfying extended cuts that people have enjoyed. I haven't watched the extended cuts yet. I enjoyed the Hobbit films. I don't need any more in Middle-earth. I understand that there are huge fans out there that love the movies and the books. I like the movies just as much as the next guy. But as a TV show, I'm not really intrigued. I don't know where you would place it. Is it going to be, you know, before all the events of, you know, Frodo and everything? Or is it going to be after? I have no clue. But as a, you know, just initial thoughts, I could care less. I'm cool with the movies. I don't need a TV show. And this is not going to entice me to get an Amazon Prime account. So, Joel, I know that you are a Lord of the Rings fan, just like I am. You've probably gone even further in the mythology, you know, with the books and whatnot. I am not at all. So, can you please dish us some common sense on this? Why is Amazon wanting to do this? Do they just hate life?
4 words. This makes no sense. So here's the thing. I mean, maybe if they're doing like some spin-off or something, that might be an interesting idea. Because this is a huge world. It's probably the most expansive fantasy world ever. Well, no, probably Star Wars is. But anyway, nevertheless, it is incredibly expansive. I mean, just read part of the Silmarillion and you'll know that. But I'm not like some huge nerd fan. That's my brother. My brother's obsessed with it. I'm the Harry Potter guy in the family. But they need to do this for the Harry Potter books, by the way. They need to take, like, the Harry Potter movies were fine as adaptations. Some of them more than others, but they need to do this for the books and just do like a direct, you know, adaptation, an actual like legitimate adaptation of everything that happens. But the thing is that Lord of the Rings makes no sense as a TV show. No sense. Unless you do a spinoff and then make it episodic, because if they're just going to make the movies adapt the material from the movies into a TV show, it makes no sense because it's not an episodic story. There's not, if you break it up into little, hour-long episodes, even in something that you binge watch, it's going to break up the flow of the story. And, there's going to be long stretches of episodes where people are just going to be wondering, what's the end game here, even though they know the end game, because it just breaks up the thing. I mean, it's just such a long, deliberately told story that sometimes big things happen in a short amount of time. Sometimes it's years before it happens again. It just wouldn't make any sense. So I don't know what's going on here, but they need to flip it over to J.K. Rowling and say, hey, can we do this, but except for Lord of the Rings, it's your books, because I feel like that would make more sense for a Warner Brothers property to take that on. I don't know. It's a weird thing. Plus there's another element here. They're always going to be compared to the movies. It's just going to happen. Maybe not with me. I'm all about separating that, but and I would take it on its own, but a lot of people are just going to compare them to the movies, which are considered modern classics. In 2007, when the AFI did their second or their third or whatever top 100 of all time, the first Lord of the Rings was on that. And it was number 50. It was pretty high. So these things are considered modern classics, and people are always going to compare them. And I don't understand why they're doing this now. I don't get it. I'm baffled. I'm open to the idea of watching it because I like the world, but whatever it is they make.
Okay, Joel, let's not lie to the people. You are not open to it. This is exactly how Joel worded this bit of news in the rundown. Here's what it says. Why in the flip dippity is there a Lord of the Rings TV show on the way? What even? Okay, Joel, you don't like this news. I don't even care if it looks like so cinematic it will make your head spin. You are not going to watch this.
I mean, it is weird because it's merely 14 years after the series ended, which is crazy, by the way. I should say after Lord of the Rings ended, not The Hobbit, which is a prequel. And anyway, different. And, people love those movies. The Hobbit is kind of generally less popular, but it's still well-liked. And, I don't know, man. It's weird. I'm vaguely open to the idea, let's just say. I think it's weird and baffling.
I'm totally with you with the Harry Potter idea. There's a lot more mythology that you can kind of explore there, whether it be, kids, teenagers,
it's literally episodic. I mean, the chapters play out in such a way that you can make, one or two of them an episode, and it fits. But with Lord of the Rings,
the thing with Lord of the Rings is that those hobbits and those elves and wizards live longer than 10 of my grandpas. So it's like, where do you find the endpoint for that? There is no endpoint.
By the time Frodo, I think in the book, by the time Frodo agrees to go on the journey, it's 17 years after Gandalf asks him. In the movies, we never see that, but that's the case in the books. He's 33 when he's asked, and then he's 50 when he actually goes on the voyage. And how do you bridge that gap? It's going to be 17 random years later. It's very weird. It's not episodic. It doesn't lend itself to show kind of potential. And I don't get it.
I don't get it. But do you know what I do get, Joel? I get the excitement that is rumbling for the next Tarantino project. So get this. So Joel and I reported a few months ago that the 9th Quentin Tarantino film was going to have his take on the Charles Manson murders. And so that's completely different than the Hateful Eight. That is for damn sure. So we were intrigued as to who he was going to cast in the movie. Now, he just got done with the draft of the script this past week, so I think, since we a couple months ago, 2 or 3 months ago. That sounds like perfect timing for Tarantino. I know it takes people longer to write scripts, but the guy is so polished at this point.
It's like his natural state is to write screenplays.
Yeah, he can crank those out like within a day if he wanted to. He probably that was probably his 127th draft. So, get this. There are rumors floating around that Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio and Samuel L. Jackson are being approached for this movie. Now, I want you to think about this. We are going to have Samuel L. Jackson from pretty much every one of his movies. We're going to have Brad Pitt, and we're going to have Leonardo DiCaprio given one of the best performances of his career in Django Unchained. Now, if you tell me straight to my face that this is not a dream cast, then you're obviously smoking something, and I want some of that dank kush, son. But until then, I'm going to tell you that I love this. I really hope that they get one or both or all three of them. Hell, I'm down for all three. There was also an article floating around of this kind of like list of people that, you know, kind of like a fan casting of who they want to play Charles Manson. And I was kind of shocked when I saw this, but not shocked with these choices. Like Paul Dano was thrown into the mix, Walton Goggins. But there was another actor thrown into the loop that I would actually like to see Tarantino direct into a serious role. Joel, I didn't know if you saw this, but Will Forte was in the mix as kind of like a dream cast, and I was like, that's
he
actually
kind of
not
looks
bad.
like him.
Yeah,
that's not an insult. I mean, just physically, he kind of looks like him if you grow the hair out.
Yeah, his beard from The Last Man on Earth, like he totally looks like Charles Manson.
Yeah, the one that he doesn't shave in half.
Yeah, exactly. But no, listen. Just hearing these rumblings gets me super excited about this. I'm always excited for any Tarantino movie that comes out because he's always doing something different. Now, granted, Django Unchained and Hateful Eight almost had kind of like a similar flair to him. But other than that, every single movie he does is completely different from the previous one. And, you know, when he's going from the Hateful Eight, which is this claustrophobic little thriller out in the middle of nowhere in the snow in a cabin, to Charles Manson, I'm going to get pumped for it. And when you have a Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Samuel L. Jackson, this could almost be, I mean, it's too early to call, but it could be his opus. Like, this could be like pinnacle Tarantino that we've really never seen before, and it could be something completely different. We know that Brad Pitt has worked in these kind of like dark, murderous atmospheres before with like Seven. Leonardo DiCaprio will literally go to any place you tell him to go as an actor, and he's also being tapped to be the serial killer one, the Devil in the White City. Yeah. So I mean, he's tapped to do that. Samuel Jackson, we know he can go crazy with saying MF for every 20 seconds. So, but no, seriously, he has.
There's no better actor who says that word.
Exactly. Like he could say it 100 times and it never gets old. But like he's one of those actors to where, yeah, he's good, he's watchable, he's entertaining, but for some weird reason, just like with Christoph Waltz, when he's under the direction of Tarantino, he gives some of the best performances of his career. So, I'm cool with this. Joel, do you have any problems with this quote-unquote dream casting?
Oh, not at all. And what's interesting is apparently calling this a Charles Manson movie is like calling Inglourious Bastards an Adolf Hitler movie. So that's an interesting. That's a loaded phrase. Yeah, I mean, obviously this is amazing, and it could only get more dream casty is like if Uma Thurman and Christoph Waltz joined the cast, pretty much, because you know those are the other actors that he's worked with and led to great success before. He's won Christoph Waltz his 2 Oscars from both times he was nominated. And obviously Uma Thurman was put on the map, in a big way because of Pulp Fiction. And I mean, I'm just going to say it, there's probably no better director of actors. And because of his dialogue, because of the conditions that he puts them in, sometimes cruel but effective. And I mean, everything about this sounds amazing. I mean, Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio have never been in a movie together, right? pretty sure.
You know what's really funny that you mentioned that, because like you're like, man, these are two great actors. Have they ever been in a movie? It's almost like when we saw the Meyerowitz stories, and we're like, Ben Stiller and Adam Sandler are playing brothers. This has never happened before. It's weird.
This has never happened, and it's interesting because we've had there are certain actors where you just wonder, is it too big for them to be in a movie together? And once upon a time, Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio were two of those actors. You just couldn't imagine it because it's like the world would cave in with the amount of star power that it has. I think that if we hadn't already had a movie that had both Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise, which was Interview with a Vampire, that would be the case for them. But you wouldn't see, for instance, Tom Cruise and Johnny Depp. At some point we might have that. I don't know. At this point, maybe. But in any case, it's crazy because, again, at some point in the past, you never would have thought of like even the possibility of Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio being in a movie together. It would just be impossible. But Tarantino's the guy to do it. And, adding in Samuel L. Jackson to that it would sort of be like, and maybe this has happened. I really don't know. I'd have to think back. But Samuel L. Jackson and Morgan Freeman being in a movie together, that would be crazy as well. And it's crazy. Everything about this is exciting. I'm always excited for another Tarantino. I know the one after that's going to be his last, right? Because I think he wanted to do 10. So
yeah,
for his penultimate, he's going out there. And
you brought up a pretty interesting combo. Can you imagine if Morgan Freeman and Samuel L. Jackson were not only in a movie, but it was a buddy comedy, and Morgan Freeman was the one that curses and Samuel L. Jackson played the straight man? So can you imagine Morgan Freeman like, that was a motherfucking road as we took that turn? Like, I can't imagine. That was terrible, by the way. I can't even imagine like him doing that and Samuel L. Jackson be like, yes.
Add in Lawrence Fishburne, like, and then have Lawrence Fishburne and Samuel L. Jackson make jokes about how they're being confused for each other, because that has happened.
Oh my God.
That has happened on TV live. Anyway,
well, speaking of terrible impressions, I'm definitely going to do it for this next story because Joel, he's already heard it before, but I'm going to do it for you guys. Anyways, The Lion King, good old Disney, summer 2019. It's coming at you, boy. It's going to be another live action movie that's completely overrun by CGI animals, just like in the Jungle Book, except in Jungle Book there was one little sliver of human there, but in this one there are no humans. So it's gonna be
It's a live action movie made all from CGI. So it's not a live action movie.
No, it is live action. No, Joel's right though. It's animated, but Jungle Book was so lifelike. It's like it kind of just makes your head hurt. Anyways, they announced the last and final member of The Lion King. People have been championing for it, and they finally got it. Beyonce is going to play Nala, which means James Earl Jones and Beyonce are going to be married. So that means Jay-Z, step aside. You are not going to be Mufasa. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine him looking at Simba and be like, that's my boy? That was a terrible Jay-Z. Do not quote me on that. Anyways, the full cast lineup has been released by Disney. It's got the all the actors' photos: Chiwetel Ejiofor, Scar. We have John Oliver as Zazu. We have Eric Andre in a movie with Donald Glover and Alfred Woodard and Billy Eichner and Keegan-Michael Key. It's just
what a weird cast. Billy Eichner and Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Well, and what's even more weird is that Billy Eichner and Seth Rogen are Timon and Pumbaa. So Simba.
Oh boy!
Like, can you imagine? Like, there was one Twitter user that put Seth's picture, and it was something along the lines of having Seth as if he was talking to Simba, like, sorry about your dad, man. That shit's fucked up. Here's a joint. Like, it's so hilarious. Like, just to know that Seth Rogen's in a Disney film. No, he's done voice acting before. Kung Fu Panda, Monsters vs. Aliens. The guy has a knack for voice talent, so him as Pumbaa's beautiful. John Oliver as Zazu. Eric Andre as one of the hyenas. Are you freaking kidding me? Like, Eric Andre is one of the weirdest dudes I've ever seen, like, ever in, like, the genre of comedy. So that's cool. But, you know what? When people we're trying to like champion Beyonce for Nala. Like, I didn't really think about it until you kind of hear her talk. It's like she's got that kind of angelic, powerful voice that you would want as a mother figure. So that makes sense. James Earl Jones, come on, you know what his voice sounds like. And then Donald Glover as Simba, I think it's actually wonderful to have him go up against Chiwetel Ejiofor as Scar. Like, come on, man. Like, I'm so excited for this. Like, the Jungle Book casting was good. And to be honest with you, I will be straight up with you. When I heard that, like, Bill Murphy, Bill Murray, I can't even speak.
Billy Murphy.
Who the fuck is Billy Murphy? Anyways, Bill Murray, when I heard he was cast, I was like, I don't know how it's going to sound, but when you watch the movie, it actually fits Baloo perfectly. With all of these, I have no reservations. Like, they all have unique personalities in their voice. I think they're all going to fit their characters, and I'm actually looking forward to this more than I did the Jungle Book, just because I think all of these actors and actresses are aces in terms of casting. So, Joel, when you saw this picture that Disney released, and you saw all the faces to the characters' names, like, this is like one of those situations, just like with the Tarantino thing, where it's like almost too perfect of casting.
Yeah, I mean, everybody falls into place. It's crazy. Donald Glover, like you said, he has that sort of soft timbre to his voice when he's talking, not when he's rapping, but that sort of reminds of Jonathan Taylor Thomas in that way, that he can kind of voice this young, naive kid kind of thrust into very serious situation. It's perfect casting. Of course, James Earl Jones has already done it, and Chiwetel Ejiofor. I mean, that's great casting to take over for Jeremy Irons. I mean, that's an amazing casting. And obviously, I mean, you get the comedy guys in there. John Oliver has that perfect Nevish voice from Zazu. It's
Yep.
perfectness. And yeah, Billy Eichner and Seth Rogen are going to be some kind of pair. At some point, they're going to have the Oscars are going to have them like present together. I guarantee it. It's going to happen. So it's perfect. I mean, you just look at it and everything falls into place. And
now, Joel, I have to ask you, like, because the Jungle Book, we saw a lot of kind of mo-capping going on. Do you think any of these actors, any of them, besides Beyonce, because I don't think she would ever do it, do you think anyone would actually get into the suit and actually be on set and act their role out and not just go into a recording studio?
I mean, it kind of depends. Like, if they've kind of established, an understanding that this is what's going to happen, you're gonna be motion capture. It might be that Beyonce does it. Now that would be interesting considering how busy she is all the time. But just on a logistical level, she tours a lot, like almost nonstop. It's insane. But I suspect she would probably be the only one. I feel like a lot of the comedians in the world run their schedules in such a way that they just basically do everything. It just seems like that to me. All the stand-up, all the TV shows. There are some comedians that have multiple TV shows, and that's a bunch of commitment. So I feel like there is a possibility that all of these people except Beyonce, and obviously like James Earl Jones, who I think he's getting up there, probably wouldn't like the idea of doing motion capture, but it'll be interesting to see what the mix is for sure. See who is like credited as a voice and who's actually on set on whatever sets there.
Yeah,
there are.
As long as they give 110%. I'm just joking. Like, obviously, I'm sure probably half of them will probably just do straight up voices, but it's nice to like see people get into their roles. Like when you see the behind the scenes of I know a lot of people don't like the franchise, but when you see Benedict Cumberbatch slithering around on the floor playing Smaug, it's like one of the funniest things. However, you also are taken back because you're like, he gives 110%. That's kind of cool. So he's going to be in the other Jungle Book, Jungle Book Origins. That's not going to happen. Warner Brothers will never make that happen.
Okay. Well, I mean, looking at the, I mean, it's already scheduled for release in less than a year, so it's
I know,
happening.
but it's just It's gonna be so weird knowing the
It's gonna
success
be very
of
weird. But
Jungle
listen
Book.
to this cast though. Like talking about that for a second. Andy Serkis as Baloo, which is great. Christian Bale as Bagheera. Benedict Cumberbatch as Shere Khan. Tom Hollander, Kate Blanchett, Peter Mullen, and it's gonna be motion capture. So everybody who's doing any sort of visual effects work on that movie is doing motion capture. So it's gonna be interesting to see Christian Bale, who seems like a person with like inhuman patience, do
Oh, gee, where'd you
motion
get that
capture.
from? The Terminator Salvation video. Listen.
Well, I mean,
listen,
patience in terms of technique.
Listen. Warner Brothers has been announcing that movie for many years and whatnot. I understand like they want to compete and do all that stuff. It's just when your movie comes out first, it's kind of hard to follow up. That's all I'll say. But as far as the Lion King movie goes, I can't wait to hear Seth Rogen talk about handing a joint to Simba. It's going to be fantastic. And also, for all those people out there that listen to my terrible impressions, I apologize if your ears started bleeding or if you started having spasms. Please seek help immediately and then come back and listen to the episode. All right, and the last piece of news is that Mark Strong is looking at he's being eyed to play the villain in the Shazam movie. Now, Joel and I talked about the Shazam casting last week with Zachary Levi, who is best known from Chuck and, the Thor franchise. I guess if you want to think about bigger films he's been in. But Mark Strong is being eyed to play the villain, and people are probably going, oh, he's a good actor. That's great. This is not the second time he's done this. He was already the villain in the Green Lantern movie. Now, granted, that movie was a pile of flaming garbage, and this is going to be completely different. They're in a different state of mind now in terms of their universe. Well, kind of. But it's going to be completely different from what they tried to do with Green Lantern. They've done it before. However, Mark Strong is one of those guys to where I just enjoy watching him. Even when he kind of plays that, like, I don't know, kind of nerdy sidekick mentor almost in Kingsman. It's like, I just enjoy watching him. He's got that voice to be a villain. He's also got some reservations to play, the straight guy. Like, I think he's a perfect pick. However, we have been down this road before with seeing him as Sinestro in Green Lantern. I did not like that movie. I mean, when you have a giant fart cloud going throughout the city with Ryan Reynolds basically shooting, what was it, a slingshot at it? I don't even remember. It was terrible. But Mark Strong is a great actor, and I want to see him succeed, but it's just like we've already seen this, Joel. We've already seen this. Are you going to give Mark Strong a second chance?
I'm willing. I like him. He's a solid presence in the movies that he's in, and I think that Green Lantern was obviously an attempt to build the DCEU. We don't consider it a part of it, even though it's kind of close enough to Man of Steel that we technically could. But Man of Steel was the start because it connected with people. Green Lantern did not because it looked terrible. I mean, it looked great in the trailers. I remember loving those trailers. But the movie itself looked terrible. It was badly performed. It was, it was just bad. And then again, I feel like Mark Strong wasn't one of the reasons for that. So I'm willing to give him a second shot in something like this, and I liked him a lot as the villain in the first Kick-Ass. So
it was great Kick-Ass.
Yeah, I'm willing to give him a second shot for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, it just Warner Brothers. Joel and I will probably do like some theorizing when Justice League comes out, and we do our episode over that because that movie is going to really determine which route they're going to go with all their movies. So we'll have to wait and see, but. I think on the surface, this news is acceptable to me. I am totally okay with it. So that's the news, guys. Please let us know down below what you thought of all the news stories. Joel, which one was your favorite?
Oh, easily the Tarantino cast, or the possibilities of the Tarantino casting.
Absolutely.
I'm excited about everything regarding that movie. So.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. That was definitely the winner this week. But please let us know down below what you thought about everything else. Now it is 2 weeks from the last Oscar talk that Joel had with you guys. And so, Joel, the floor is yours. Which categories of the Oscars are you going to cover today?
Yeah, so today I'm covering a couple of the less competitive ones. It's going to be a pretty quick update, or I guess not update, first time talking about these. But it's going to be costume design and production design this year. They're both pretty spelled out for us. There's a lot of obvious contenders, particularly in costume design. I feel like the big ones that I can say are with pretty good certainty. There's obviously Beauty and the Beast. You know, Disney killed it with the costumes in that movie. Whatever its failings, it was amazingly produced, at least on that basis. So that's their best bet. Victoria and Abdul is done by Consolata Boyle, who is nominated a lot for Stephen Frears, and it's pretty impressive work. So I'm expecting that should get in. The Shape of Water seems like such a huge contender in everything right now that I'm just automatically going toward that. I don't know how complex the work is, but feel like it's a good shot. Darkest Hour is obviously going to be a major contender as well in the technical categories, but the big one, because it's about costume design, literally, is Phantom Thread, which is the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie with Daniel Day-Lewis. And obviously, there's going to be some impressive work done there, and it's from Mark Bridges, who received that. He won for the artist, but he also received that surprise nomination a couple years ago for Inherent Vice. So clearly, the Academy likes him. He's one of the best in the business, I think. And then I think that there are a couple that are kind of right outside that could sneak in. The Greatest Showman is obviously a big musical production. And that's clearly going to be a contender as well. But also Wonderstruck, which has a lot of really impressive recreation of the 70s and 20s. And I'll briefly talk about Wonderstruck. I saw it this last week. So I'll briefly talk about that at the end. But whatever else in the movie, it's impressively produced on a recreation level. So I feel like that could be a spoiler and possibly knock out Beauty and the Beast, but those are the five. I feel like they are Beauty and the Beast, Darkest Hour, Phantom Thread, The Shape of Water, and Victoria and Abdul. The next one is production design. Again, this is pretty clear. I feel like this is the one where The Greatest Showman will possibly show up, and it's because it's, again, this big, musical production. It's about the circus, so it's going to have a lot of, complex elements there. Also, The Shape of Water is supposedly very impressive in this area, so I feel like that'll show up. Dunkirk is obviously very impressive. There's a bunch of complex elements to the beaches and the things on the beaches. And in the same breath, Darkest Hour, which, has a lot of... it's about the same thing in some respects. It's about sort of filling in those gaps off the beaches from the Dunkirk evacuation, partly. And then the big one this year is Blade Runner 2049. I feel like that's going to be the big contender, probably going to win it. And of course, right on the edge, Phantom Thread could again show up here. It's quieter work, seems like, from the other ones, but could get in there. And, of course, Beauty and the Beast is right on the edge there. So, again, I think that the obvious contenders here are Blade Runner 2049, Darkest Hour, Dunkirk, The Greatest Showman, and The Shape of Water. So that's your update for this particular 2-week stretch. And next time we are going to have... Let me see what's on the docket. Goodness me. Gravy grief. What is it? Looks like film editing and cinematography, I think, will be the next one. So, anyway, I'll determine that later on. I had my list up and it went somewhere else. I had this all planned out. So, we'll have another update, in any case, in 2 weeks from now on the Justice League episode. So
yeah, Joel's lying too. He never writes anything down. He just wings everything. This is how he rolls, ladies and gentlemen. Anyways, thank you, Joel, for another Oscar update. Sounds like a lot of beautiful looking movies are going to be nominated this year, which is totally cool with me. And speaking of some beautiful looking trailers, my word, this is quite a selection this week. Let's jump into the trailer. Excuse me, I had something caught in my throat. Let's jump into the trailer section of the show. A24. This company they're going to go down as one of the best in history. If they haven't already, just from the Best Picture win from Moonlight last year, but they have another one coming out because they have 5 coming out every single week, called The Ballad of Lefty Brown. And this one stars good old Billy Pullman, the president from Independence Day, and basically a revenge film set as a Western. And you're actually going to notice a pattern besides maybe one or two of them. All the trailers this week have like a revenge theme to them, so I'm cool with that. But the Ballad of Lefty Brown, something happens to Bill Pullman. He goes to search for the people. But I think if you're really into Westerns, I think you're going to really dig this trailer. It's not my favorite of the week, but I really thought it was a well-constructed trailer. It hit the beats like you would see in these type of films. I thought Bill Pullman looked really great. I haven't really seen him in a movie in a very long time as like the lead person. It almost kind of had the tonalistic stylings of like a mixture of what I've seen in Westworld versus Westworld and like True Grit. So it does have some kind of like, great cinematography with it, and some really great acting in it. It's a really well done trailer. I have nothing wrong with it, but it is from A24, and this is one of their last movies that they're going to release this year after The Disaster Artist. So I'm willing to check it out, but definitely not my favorite trailer. So Joel, did this one wow you as A24 does, or did this not wow you like A24 does sometimes?
I think it's a good trailer. I'm looking forward to seeing this. I assume they'll probably send it out with the screener thing. In any case, I'll probably see it on Blu-ray later on. But nevertheless, yeah, it impressed me though. I think that this looks like a solidly told story. Looks very stripped down and beautiful, as you said. I mean, the production looks impressive. It's very interesting to see Bill Pullman in a lead role, like you said, especially with that accent.
Yeah, I don't even know what accent that was, but he nailed it.
I have no idea what region he's from, but nevertheless, impressive trailer for sure. Not a lot to talk about in it, but yeah, I mean, 4 of the trailers this week have some sort of revenge element to them. So it's interesting that they all kind of fell into this week. Exactly.
Like when you sent me the notes and you sent me all these trailers, I'm like, I've seen all these trailers this past week. Wait a minute, did Joel go like on the Revenge YouTube channel or something? Like this is literally like the same like type of movie, just set in a different setting or a different time period. So it's just crazy. But this next one, Joel, is not really a revenge story, and it's something to kind of break up the revenge mold this week.
Yeah, so, and this was kind of a weirdly timed trailer for sure.
Go ahead and say it with pride there, Joel.
It's basically Louis C.K. in, like, Woody Allen mode in all of the problematic terms of that phrase, because this one's called I Love You, Daddy, and it is basically Louis C.K., has his daughter who falls in love with an older man who's a Hollywood exec, and the Hollywood exec is like this, basically a predator of younger women. It's kind of awkward to watch this trailer right now because of all this stuff coming out. As a movie, looks whatever to me, but nevertheless, and it's filmed in black and white for seemingly no reason. I can't really tell the reason, but nevertheless, it looks whatever, but we have to talk about the fact that this movie, and honestly, Louis C.K. has his own interesting past that has been talked about recently. It's kind of been swallowed up by a bunch of other news, but he's got his demons, and this is an interesting outlet for him to be going in into like this kind of material. It's just weird, but anyway, I'm curious to hear what you think, because this is weird.
Yeah, it's one of those things to where, is the black and white necessary? No. But the cinematography looks crisp, it looks clean, it looks well lit. It does look like a very interesting indie dramedy, but, and there's a humongous but, even if all these stories with Weinstein, Spacey, or a Rat Pack asshole have come out, even if they did not come out, I still would find this trailer creepy. Like it just gave off like this weird, just kind of just vibe that I was just not just into it. It almost felt like it was trying to distance itself from you as you were watching it. Like it's almost like if you were trying to talk to someone and they were slowly backing up, and you're like, "Why are you backing up? I'm trying to talk to you." It's like it was very awkward. It's very unsettling, and it's not like gross or graphic. It's just the underlying themes, like Joel said. It's a younger woman going after an older guy in a relationship. Hollywood exec. It's like, especially with the title of the movie, it just I can't do it with this trailer. It's a well shot trailer. Sure, it looks like it's gonna be well acted, but the subject matter to me is just one of those things where I won't even feel comfortable watching it, even if the stories didn't come out today.
Yeah, it's super weird, and it seems like there's some argument from another character in the movie in sort of supporting this kind of relationship because at least it's from like her perspective. It's just weird. It's just a weird trailer, but nevertheless. Getting back into the revenge mold.
I was fixing to say
next trailer.
I was fixing to say we just got off on a train stop. Now we're back on that revenge train. So this one's called In the Fade, and this one stars Diane Kruger. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly because guess what? I failed Latin in high school. That's my only extension of other languages. Anyways, this premiered at Cannes Film Festival in May, I believe, and I was intrigued not because of the movie or the story, because the story is kind of thin and it is something we've kind of seen before. But I always get intrigued when films play at festivals and they win high-profile awards. Diane Kruger won Best Actress at Cannes Film Festival. I don't know if you guys know this, there are a lot of movies that are in these festivals, especially high-profile ones like this. If you can win that coveted award, that means you beat everyone. That means this performance is something to look out for, and that's exactly why I want to watch this movie. I have not seen much of Diane Kruger in her career. She's kind of, she's popped in movies every now and then. I haven't been like, oh, wow, who was that? I was like, oh, she was great. She was serviceable to the movie. But this one is a basic revenge movie. She has a family, husband and son get killed in an accident, and she basically goes out to find revenge. But it's not like a Taken type of revenge. It's more of, courtroom drama type of like justice that she wants to see, because she knows that the people are terrible people, and she's going to take the matters into her own hands. And it does have some themes of racial tension and racial discrimination that's unfortunate in our society, and so that does have some type of relevance to the movie, which I found appealing because it does play to today's times. But I think overall as a movie, the way the trailer was cut, I was intrigued, I was thrilled, and I think just them highlighting Diane Kruger with those critic quotes and just showing the scenes that they showed, it looks like it's going to be one of those performances that could sneak in to the Oscars, as sometimes a foreign film will do that. Marion Cotillard has done that a couple times. Shit, Joel, I'm forgetting her name because the movie was so terrible.
You know what? Isabelle Huppert.
Isabelle Huppert. She was nominated last year, so they are. This is no stranger to them to nominate someone from a foreign film if they're that good. And this trailer looks like it's going to be one of those performances we talk about. I'm actually looking forward to it because of her and the accolades that she got from Cannes. So, Joel, what did you think about this one? And to be honest with you, we've talked about the A24 film and this one, and this is still not my favorite revenge trailer. But we'll get to that. But in terms of this one, what did you think of it?
Yeah, it's interesting because Diane Kruger, you were mentioning that she kind of pops into a few movies occasionally. It's weird. She's bigger in Germany. That's where she basically left Germany for like 10 years or something. She was a model, then she was an actress for a long time. And then she kind of left Germany suddenly and wasn't allowed back for some reason. And now she's coming back, and this is her big comeback with a renowned German director, Fatih Akin. Actually, I don't know if he's German. Anyway, nevertheless, this is kind of a big comeback to her country. And so it's interesting to see that because, we think of her, I think of her as an American actress with an accent who just kind of comes into the occasional movie, Inglourious Bastards, National Treasure movies, all that. But she's bigger in Germany. She's a big star. And so, yeah, I mean, you're right. We could be seeing a nomination because I feel like this is going to, now it's coming out in 2018, not 2017 for us, but we could still see it happen. And so I'm curious to see it for sure. I think it's the foreign language submission for Germany, so that'll be interesting to see. I'm trying to keep up with those, and so if it comes out in early 2018, I will see it, and it'll be it should be interesting. It looks like I hear it takes a lot of really unpredictable turns in the last act, so that's interesting. I heard that from Eric Cohn of IndieWire, and who really liked this movie, and so I'm very interesting. I'm very interesting. Wow, very interested.
Well, Joel, thank you for thinking so highly of yourself. Jeez, so
I am the greatest person. So,
Joel, you know how I made that joke earlier that A24 pretty much turns out 10 movies a week? Well, guess what? They're not done this week. There's another trailer. What do they got?
Yeah, this one comes out early next year. It's called A Prayer Before Dawn. It takes place in the Muay Thai boxing world. I guess he's British. Can't remember. Anyway, a British guy is in not his own country, let's just say, and he's put into jail after, I guess, some I couldn't really tell. I'm something illegal, like theft or I can't remember. Anyway, he's put into jail, and in order to survive, because it's an incredibly brutal jail, he learns Muay Thai boxing. This looks intense. This is none of these are even my favorite trailer of the week. Certainly not I Love You, Daddy. But this one looks intense, man. It's got Joe Cole. Also, I'm gonna say this from memory. Vitaya Pansringarm. We don't see him in the trailer, I don't think, but he's the bad guy from Only God Forgives. So we're gonna get to see him in something again, something very violent and intense. Seems fitting. But Joe Cole is from Green Room, I believe. He was in that. So we got another actor who was in something ultra-violent, moving to something else from A24 that's ultra-violent. So I'm excited for this. I think it looks really stylish. It looks gritty and raw. The cinematography especially sells that idea. And it also looks like it's a delicate drama as well. There's some delicate dramatic elements to that, to the story that it seems to have. There's going to be some character study too. So very excited for this.
Yeah, it was one of those trailers to where when, of course, I'm subscribed to A24 on YouTube, so whenever they pop up with any trailer, I'm going to give it a shot. I was blown away by this, just from the, like we said, like the just raw intensity and just the grit, and the cinematography just gets down and dirty with these prisoners, and they actually shot this in a prison. Like this is actually a real life prison that they shot in, so it actually adds to the authenticity of the production design. And it looks like this character is going to go through a major arc in the movie that I was just intrigued just watching from the trailer. I was like, I can't wait to see this guy fight for his life in prison and just overcome everything and have this giant arc.
That was the major surprise because, just looking at the premise, you wouldn't expect that. Just looking at the premise, there are obviously great boxing films and all that, but simply looking at the premise, which seems like a stripped-down drama, you don't expect to find in the trailer that there is going to be a very complex arc for this guy. He will not end this story in the same place that he begins it. And exactly. That's very clear. And it's gonna be a rough one for sure. But I love it, and this next one's going to be a rough one, and I'm just going to give it away. This is my favorite trailer of the week.
And mine too.
Yeah. So this one's called Sweet Virginia, and it looks like it's a lot more violent than that title suggests.
A little bit. It's actually the sequel to Sweet Home Alabama.
Suddenly, at the end, Reese Witherspoon shows up. No.
That would take me completely out of that trailer experience. Yeah, so Sweet Virginia, I actually did not watch it this week because I didn't even know it existed. Joel sent me it, and I'm glad he did, because Jon Bernthal is just a national treasure. The best way I can describe this is that Jon Bernthal encounters this young man played by Christopher Abbott, and he starts to kind of have these weird vibes, and he kind of befriends him, and Christopher Abbott wants to kind of take revenge on him and whatnot. It's not even the plot or the revenge themes that got me, it's the way the trailer was put together. I don't think I've seen a trailer this year that affected me in the revenge genre like it did. Like, just the way it was cut, it was slow, it was drawn out, it really just kind of like permeates your soul as you're watching it. The acting looks out of bounds. If you don't know who Christopher Abbott is, he played one of the family members in It Comes at Night, and he's been kind of popping up in a bunch of indie films in the past 5 years, so he's really starting to blow up. But him going against Jon Bernthal, who we know is an established actor and who is about to have his own Punisher season in a couple weeks, we know that he's capable of leading a movie. Just having Christopher Abbott, who's kind of an unknown at this point to most people, going up against him, it's absolutely perfect. And just the vibe of the trailer, the tone, it was just this pitch perfect swirl of like just dark, almost like dark comedy mixed in with some really like serious and brutal moments. It looks like it's going to be more psychological than I thought. This trailer just surprised me because deep down, Joel, I wish it would have been a sequel to Sweet Home Alabama, but you know what? Damn it, I was wrong. It was something completely different, and I'm totally okay with that. Please strike that from the record. I don't want to ever have that coming out of my mouth again, that Sweet Home Alabama is a movie. But Sweet Virginia looks fantastic. I really hope that at some point Joel and I get to see this. Joel, what do you got, man?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping it's from IFC Films, so we have a good shot. It's amazing. It gave me real Jeremy Saulnier vibes. Guy from who directed Blue Ruin and Green Room, and in this way that it's this sort of, there's these delicate drama elements, but it explodes into ultra violence at some points. It's interesting because Jon Bernthal is an actor that is a sharp turn from total apathy toward seeing him in a movie, because it was just like he had picked projects that weren't very interesting and didn't really challenge him, it seemed. But I thought the movie was just okay, but he was great in it. This movie Pilgrimage from earlier this year, that very small. I watched it on iTunes, but it's this sort of Viking era drama, and he plays a mute guy in it, and it's an entirely physical performance until a certain point when it isn't. Let's just say that. But yeah, he's become really intense. I'm thinking about watching The Punisher, honestly, which comes on Netflix in a couple weeks, right? So it's very interesting to see them together. Christopher Abbott was really good in this movie James White a few years ago. And so I've been enjoying seeing him pop up and stuff. He was also, weirdly enough, kind of stuck out in it, but he was in that movie Whiskey Tango Foxtrot with Tina Fey. He was the liaison whenever she goes over to the country, whatever country it was. And yeah, I mean, it's just such a good trailer. It's really intense and stylish, and the cinematography looks amazing. So yeah, I'm excited. I think it comes out. Does it come out this year or next year?
It's listed for this year, but I mean, we are down to our final 8 weeks of the year, so I have no clue.
Yeah, that's true. It might be one of those things where it's just like listed because it played on a festival or something.
Correct.
And in which case it's probably next year. But yeah, it looks terrific.
Yeah, so I mean, there's no surprise about it, everyone. That is our favorite trailer of the week. But what about you guys? Please let us know what your favorite trailer was down below. And I'm actually surprised. I'm legitimately surprised that with a big movie like Thor Ragnarok, there was not a bigger trailer that dropped this week to play in front of it. But whatever, I'm not a marketer. But yeah, let us know down below. And speaking of Thor Ragnarok, guys, let's jump into this stuff. So, Thor Ragnarok opened up this week. It's a small little movie by Marvel. I think they gambled, like a budget of $20,000 on it. It was one of those experimental films that I really, yeah, right. That might cover a limo fee for Chris. Anyways, Thor Ragnarok is the, I believe, 17th film in this franchise, and by franchise I mean the MCU. It's been going on since 2008 with the start of Iron Man, and when we get Infinity War next year, Joel, prepare to feel old because it will be 10 years in the making. My God. So anyways, Thor Ragnarok comes from director Taika Waititi. It's the third film in the Thor franchise, and, the Thor franchise up until this point I think it was fine. I actually like the sequel. I don't love it. I like the first one, don't really love it, but I still like it as a part of this universe to be like this cosmic realm and kind of fit in that Guardians of the Galaxy type of universe. So, Joel, before we get into kind of our ramp up, of previous films with Thor and, his individual films, can you please tell the audience what this movie is about?
Yeah, so this is interesting because it's kind of a Raggedy Ann, Shaggy Dog story. It's not really connected to the main plot of the MCU, which I think is actually a benefit. But basically what it's about is Thor is kind of having to control his brother, essentially, because his brother, as you remember in the end of the Dark World, took over the post of leader of Asgard, forcibly by sending his father somewhere. His father played by Anthony Hopkins, and Loki played by Tom Hiddleston, of course. And in this one, a bit of a conflict kind of ensues because Odin's firstborn, named Hela, played by Cate Blanchett, has come back to rule Asgard, with little things called destruction and death and such. But really what this movie is kind of a buddy comedy, or three of them, because Thor is kind of abandoned to this discarded planet where he teams up with Hulk, played by Mark Ruffalo, and the two are basically put into this forced gladiator match, headed up by the Grandmaster, played by Jeff Goldblum, and they try to escape an apparently inescapable planet with the help of an Asgardian Valkyrie. We never really learn her name. She just kind of is known as the Valkyrie, played by Tessa Thompson. And so that's basically it. Kind of becomes a triple buddy comedy because Loki comes in to help, or does he? Ha ha ha.
That one's a trickster.
He is a trickster.
And just before we begin, let you guys know, as always, especially with superhero films, we're not going to spoil anything because I actually do think this movie has a lot of surprises in it, and I'm actually cool with just keeping these under wraps because they were actually, some of them were like, wow, that was actually really cool.
Yeah, so, I very much streamlined a lot of the stuff in this movie.
Yeah, exactly. So Joel did a very vague interpretation, which, is appreciated, so you guys don't throw pitchforks at us. But yeah, so you guys already know the drill. I'm a huge Marvel fan. Joel's a mixed bag, which is fine. I respect that. I don't want us to both be head over heels over the whole franchise, but my relationship with Thor in general, like I said, when I saw him in 2011, I thought the movie was fine. It was a nice kind of breakaway because before that, all we got was Iron Man 1, Incredible Hulk, and Iron Man 2. So we didn't really have any cosmic type of Avenger, movie yet. And so this was the first one. I thought Kenneth Branagh, the director, did a pretty good job. Then we saw him in the first Avengers, and I thought Joss Whedon really kind of provided a comedic voice for Thor because just like Captain America, he is out of his own time. He's out of his world. He's new to everything. So, having an Asgardian, god of thunder, basically go around and point at a mailbox and be like, what is this contraption? Like that's funny stuff. It's enjoyable. It's cute. So moving on to his sequel with Thor: The Dark World, I know a lot of people will put this in the same category as like an Iron Man 2, as one of the weaker MCU films. I rewatched it before Age of Ultron came out, and I really enjoyed it for what it was. It actually does have a pivotal death in the movie that does affect, Thor and Loki's psyche. I will just say that. And, I enjoyed it for what it was. It's not, I don't go crazy over it. Yes, the villain in the film is definitely very, very forgettable, but I still enjoyed it as a Thor installment. Then Avengers Age of Ultron comes around, and we have Joss Whedon coming back to direct, and once again, Thor has that comedic personality, and we get to see a little bit more of Thor in action, because up until this point, yeah, he's had some action scenes in Thor 1 and Thor the Dark World, but they weren't really scenes that kind of like highlighted the God of Thunder. So, now we're up to this point. Because in Age of Ultron, this movie's 2 years old, so I don't mind saying this. Thor leaves. He's got a little vision going on. Took a little acid, a little LSD. You know what I'm saying? And so he started having visions in his hot tub. He was butt ass naked, and it was a porno. But to go back to what we were saying, no, he leaves Earth because he has visions that Asgard is going to be, rocked by this thing called Ragnarak, which is, I know Joel just cringed. It basically just means apocalypse, and he has these visions. He wants to go back and warn everyone. So now Thor Ragnarok.
You gained some points with the porno thing, and then you had the Ragnarok. Anyway, go ahead.
I know. Well, it's my whole humor scale, Joel, as you know, is an up and down thing. All right, so just deal with it. So anyways, I think the most interesting thing is we knew Thor Ragnarok was coming. That wasn't the big thing. It was Taika Waititi. If I even tell you what this guy has done, you're going to be like, why did they pick this guy? So I saw this little mockumentary a while back called What We Do in the Shadows, which I actually think is one of the better mockumentaries I've seen in the past 10 years. Basically, a bunch of vampires wake up in a house, and we kind of see their day-to-day activities. It's got that dry British wit type of humor, which I really enjoy. Then he does a kind of smaller film that has more of a comedic and dramedy edge to it with Hunt for the Wilder People, which, funny enough, I saw that at South by Southwest in 2016, and Taika could not be there because he was filming Thor Ragnarok. And I thought this is always a weird choice. Even for Marvel, I'm like, listen, this guy's a comedic genius. What is he doing around a Thor film? And I was wrong. He did a fantastic job. I will just say right off the bat, I like this film quite a bit. Might even love it. But as I talk about it, I might convince myself. So Joel, what has been your relationship with Thor in his own movies, as a part of the Avengers and group ensembles, and just your kind of anticipation for this one, especially with Waititi involved?
Yeah, so I am a mixed bag with Marvel. Chase is right. Actually, kind of going back through the MCU, Thor was the first one that I liked, and so that was an interesting experience. I liked it because there was sort of I think Tony Stark actually called it Shakespeare in the Park in the Avengers, and I felt like Kenneth Branagh, who has done Shakespeare, kind of approached it in that way. I think he saw that there was some sort of Shakespearean potential in the dynamic between Loki and Thor. I think that's probably what drew him to it, the sort of the brotherly vibe, complex relationship there. And so I really liked that, and I just thought it was a really funny fish out of water comedy on Earth. So kind of an underwhelming final battle scene, but that tends to happen a lot in Marvel. I thought that he was one of the best aspects of the Avengers, which is a movie I very much enjoy. It's one of my favorites in the MCU, and I thought that Joss Whedon was able to find something in his character that was, he kind of expanded on the fish out of water comedy to make him sort of this comedy bro kind of. That's a weird way to describe him, but he's this big hulking guy, and he's also just really funny, laid back. It was a lot of fun to see him in that kind of vibe with everybody else in the cast, and seeing somebody who's literally out of this world interacting with people on this world, and it was just a lot of fun to see that. With the I'm not a fan of the Thor sequel. I think it's pretty flat. The villain was unforgettable. Wow, he was pretty forgettable. I can't even remember his name.
It was Malekith.
Malekith. I was about to say Maleficent. Anyway.
Can you imagine Angelina Jolie popping up in Asgard? It's like, what? Okay, listen, Disney, I realize that you like to crossbreed your stuff, but don't do that.
I think it was Mal something. I don't really like it. It kind of was too serious, or too self-serious, I should say. Felt like it expended a lot of energy on this little, as Thor calls it, this beautiful glowing Infinity Stone thing that just doesn't really make any sense. Honestly, like thinking through that whole thing, it just doesn't make any sense because they never try to make sense of it. And I thought he was fine in the movie. I liked him in it, but the movie around him was just kind of blah. Very much so the same thing with Avengers Age of Ultron. I think he barely really figured into that. He was just kind of a god with a hammer again, and it didn't really work. With Taika Waititi, I'm a huge fan of What We Do in the Shadows and Hunt for the Wilder People. I haven't seen his two movies before that, Eagle vs. Shark and Boy, but I'm very interested to do that. But yeah, What We Do in the Shadows is the one that really put him on the map for me. I remember seeing that in a double feature with another movie out in Dallas back in 2015. That was a lot of fun. And but you're right, it was such a weird out of left field choice for them to hire the director of What We Do in the Shadows for the third Thor movie. It's just weird. But yeah, I mean, so that's kind of my history. I was definitely looking forward to it, especially after that teaser trailer. I mean, I talked about it on the show. It's one of my favorite trailers of all time, scored to Immigrant Song, which is really well used in the movie. And which I'm happy that they did that, by the way. I hate it when they have like a trailer for a movie, they use a song, and then they don't use the song in the movie. That's so annoying because it's like, well, why did you use the song? You pumped us up with this. Anyway, I'm glad that they used it in the movie. That's not really a spoiler, whatever, because we haven't given away context. But yeah, so I was excited, and I liked it. I can happily say that it's kind of, I guess it would be in the line of the Thor movies, maybe tied with the first one, maybe slightly above it. But we'll see. I quite like both. So yeah, I'm glad to say that I like this one.
Yeah, I think by default, as much as I like the first two, this is definitely the best one. It's not. There's no competition. It's not. I'm not saying that the other two were just absolute garbage. I mean, Joel likes to think that for the second one, but if you look at what Thor is in the comics, what he's been like progressing in this series, I just think this was a nice kind of breed of both worlds into this film to really kind of represent this character as appropriate as possible. So let's jump into it, Joel, because I'm ready to jump into it. I actually don't have that many negatives, so would you like to do negatives first or positives?
I have fewer negatives, so I guess we could do that first.
Okay, so negatives. As far as Taika Waititi, I will say the double-edged sword, if you will, to call it out, elephant in the room, the humor can be a bit forceful sometimes. It can be a little bit too much to where I understand you want to make your film jokey. You establish that at the beginning of the movie. I appreciate that, so we kind of know what we're getting ourselves into. But when you keep hammering us over the head over and over again with joke after joke after joke, first of all, we can't even breathe. Because if it's funny, we're just continuing laughing. It doesn't give us any time to rest, to really kind of absorb what we just saw and maybe have a tonal shift into something else. I just felt like sometimes the jokes were a little too jokey. It's like, okay, can we wield that back a little bit? Especially with Taika Waititi's, I will say, appearance in the movie. I'm not going to say where, but I mean, he's funny as his character. But at the same time, when we have these serious dramatic scenes, I just felt like some of the jokes would cut into the dramatic scenes like a hot knife, and it was just very abrupt. And I will say this before we continue on. Why has no critic, before this movie came out, ever mentioned that this movie was dark? all they ever touched upon was the damn comedy. I get it. There's funny moments. This is not some ha-ha, roo-rah movie. I had the same problem when I heard the reviews for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. It's so funny. It's one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. Blah, 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 blah. No! This movie has some really, dark themes that play throughout its story, which I really enjoy. That's some of my favorite parts about this movie and Guardians of the Galaxy.
Listeners, be ready for a debate. Go ahead, Jason.
Well, whatever. Listen, people... I know people are going to be against me, including Joel, to where they appreciate the jokey, tongue-in-cheek nature of this film and it poking fun at itself. That's fine for a few scenes, but I don't want it plaguing throughout the movie. I would say, I'd say 80% of the humor worked. 20% no. So I'd say it's like an 80-20 split. I'm fine with that number. It doesn't have to all work for me. When it hits, sure, and it's very creative in terms of camera placement, in terms of how it's edited, because timing is everything with comedy. Taika really knows how to time comedy out perfectly, and I think for the most part, it works. But I will say that a negative is going into the humor a little too much. And as far as a technical aspect goes, and this is just a nitpick, this is a very VFX heavy movie. There are a few scenes where it feels a little too green screeny. That's to be expected when your whole world is basically CGI, with minus a few maybe sets that extend 20 feet or whatever, and then the green screen behind it. I understand that, and some of it was shot on location, but very, very minimal efforts were made. But I will say, on a technical level, the green screen can be apparent. But going into the positives when we get there, the VFX are outstanding. I'm just saying that sometimes when the actors are in front of the screen, it can seem a little, hey, that is apparent. I don't believe what I'm seeing. I can't suspend my disbelief. Other than that, I really don't have any other gripes with it. I just thought it was solid from start to finish. But those are just some nitpicks. So Joel, I would like you to combat what I just said, and start off with that. What do you find so appalling about what I said?
Well, first, I just want to say I can't really argue with what you said about the visual effects. It's a question of polish for sure. I think that some of the, for instance, body double moments with Cate Blanchett and Chris Hemsworth in one really obvious shot is distracting. But yeah, I mean, obviously we're going to get into some of the other visual effects and the positives, and some big ones too, because it's generally really impressive work. Okay, so this is a point of debate. All right, so I feel like we are completely approaching this movie in a totally different way, and I think that actually a lot of critics and you are approaching it in a totally different way. This is not a drama.
No, I'm not saying it's a drama. Hold on. You can have a good blend of both, but when critics are touting it as just a straight up, just goofy slapstick comedy, it's like there's so much more. There's more than that, Joel. There's so much more than that.
There's more than that, but it's what distracts from it. It is primarily a triple feature of buddy comedies that is very goofy, and then you have the main thrust of the plot that the movie constantly forgets about with this stuff with Hela. So I think that it's there is a problem there, and I'm going to get into that in my negatives. But this is a comedy. It is not a drama with comedy elements, and because of the fact that the main thrust of what we follow with Thor as a character in this movie, despite some of the changes that are made to the character, there's some surprising ones, being dramatic in nature. It's because he is then finally interacting with the dramatic potential of the movie, which is the stuff with Hela. So yes, there is, obviously the climactic confrontation between them at the end, but primarily this is a comedy. It's not even like a self-jokey comedy. Sometimes it is, but it's just it's a comedy. And it was the same thing with large sections of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and even, a lot of Spider-Man Homecoming. This is the year that they've kind of realize that potential that, in their most ideal state, the MCU movies are comedies, or should be. It's when they become self-serious that they become less effective, and it's because that's when they confront regular, like, traditional drama. And here I think that's my big negative. The stuff with Hela is far less interesting than the stuff with Thor and Loki, Thor and the Valkyrie, Thor and the Hulk, because it's so funny. And it even, like, kind of fixes what I think is a major problem. I'm not going to go into who appears or what happens when he appears, but I'm going to just say that another Avenger, another budding Avenger, appears in this movie. And the movie fixes the whole problem with that, because the entire scene is played for comedy. Neither of them can believe that they're talking to the other one. And it's so funny because they're completely different personalities. It's the Avengers kind of dynamic all over again. So this is primarily a comedy. And so for me, the stuff that distracts from the other stuff is the drama from the comedy. I think that the stuff with Hela, where it's just, she just kind of taking over, she recruits a lieutenant played by Carl Urban, and all of that, going into the third act, that's what detracts from what I think is most appealing here, which is the comedy. And that's going into my positives, of course. But that was my major thing. I think that the major part, the problem with this movie, the reason I'm not going to go into the area at all, is because of the screenplay, more than Waititi. I think that the screenplay by, I forgot, 3 other people, I think that is at its least interesting when it's trying to connect to the overall MCU. I think it's most interesting when it lets the cast loose. It lets them kind of run with the comedy of the stuff with Thor and his friends and enemies, and the stuff with Jeff Goldblum is so funny. That's the strength of this movie for me.
I'm not denying that some of the comedy doesn't work. Like, there were some parts where the timing was just absolutely just beautiful. But I found the most interesting part with the film that subtitle means apocalypse, to me, the more kind of like subtle, gut-wrenching stuff. There's a particular scene with Hulk in I will say, a vehicle that really kind of struck me, because it's like, this guy is going through a lot of stuff right now. I like the stuff with Hela and backstory. I like the kind of like father and son bond between, Anthony Hopkins and Chris Hemsworth, and then, the brotherly bond that him and Loki have been fighting for the past, 5 years or so. I'm not saying the comedy doesn't, work for the most part. I'm just saying that sometimes when you have a scene that's supposed to be a real, just kind of like somber moment, to cut it through with a joke like that, it's like just slicing it with a knife, and it doesn't work for me in some parts. I'm not saying the whole movie, I'm just saying some parts, especially towards the end, when something catastrophic happens, and there is a line that cuts through that, as if it didn't even matter, as if it was just like, whatever. No. Let me finish.
Okay.
I'm just saying that sometimes in the movie we will have a serious element to develop and advance these characters, their emotional states, their psyche, anything to advance that, only to have it undercut by a joke. That's all I'm saying.
I love it.
And I don't see this as a comedy. I see it as a blend, because the Marvel movies have always been a blend, and when the drama hits, it really hits. Case in point, when you watch Civil War, that movie does have a lot of jokes in it, but it's played for more of a dramatic effect.
That's primarily a drama, because it's connecting directly to the MCU. It's all about the stakes in the overall franchise. Here, it's a movie that's just kind of taking a break from that, except for when it doesn't, and I think that's when it's distracting.
And I will agree to disagree, because I feel like the distraction sometimes is the comedy, when they should play more of this as an advancement in a trilogy, and have it be more impactful on a devastating level when your movie's called Apocalypse, Joel. That's all I'm saying. So, but
I don't know. I feel like the MCU is that it's most interesting when it tries to not take itself so seriously. And so I felt like there was a big break here from, for instance, Thor: The Dark World, which was too much about the stuff with the MCU. I mean, can you make any sense of what that Infinity Stone does? This movie calls that out. Thor has no idea what they are because he doesn't understand them. And that's sort of, slightly commenting on the fact that we don't really understand them either. We just know that they're important because they're in the Marvel, it's the Marvel machine. I guess it's probably maybe a difference, of approach from me to you, because I know that you're a Marvel guy and I'm less of one. I feel like the best movies in this franchise are the ones that take themselves, seriously enough to be good movies, but not so seriously that all of the stakes fit in this little tight box that, Iron Man 3, the reason that movie is so unpopular is because of the big joking reveal. And that's why I love that movie, because it makes fun of itself in the process. Here, the movie is basically saying, we're going to take a break. We're going to give you a good time. This is a comedy. There's a little bit, because we have to, because we're studio mandated, there's a little bit of the MCU stuff there, but primarily this is a comedy. This is a buddy comedy. We're gonna it might be called Ragnarok, but it's this, big flashy kind of Flash Gordon throwback, and we're just gonna give you this comedy that has a few dramatic elements. It's not even a dramatic story, and it's not Civil War. Civil War was about the stakes in the MCU. It was all about fracturing the team from within. It was not a comedic structure. It was not a comedic story. It might have had those elements in there, but the primary motivating force is comedic. And I think that, it does, become a problem when finally the movie decides, oh, well, I guess I better make it about Ragnarok. But I don't know. I just feel like it's interesting that we have negatives, but they're like the polar opposite of each other.
Well, Joel, I realize that our wonderful listeners out there love to hear us bicker, but we do have some positives. I'm sure we'll have some similarities. So it's not all throwing venom at each other. Even though I love you.
I love you too, boo.
Well, thank you. No, for positives, I mean, this is straight up the best looking Thor film. It's visually astounding. I love the way Taika Waititi created the world, especially, oh my god, it had some of the best imagery I've seen in any comic book movie, with certain flashbacks on how they kind of reenacted certain scenes. I thought the actual visual eye that Taika had, you might call it a comedy, that's fine, but at least the guy has a visual styling for Thor and knows how to sink you into that world of this kind of sci-fi fantasy, this otherworldly type of property that's not earthbound. And even though when Thor is earthbound, it's it's hilarious, all that stuff, but when he's in Asgard, he fits. And I just thought, when they were in Asgard, or when they were on that trash planet, when they were on ships, I love the visual, colorful, robust look of it. And I felt like I was there, because this is an entertaining film, even with some of the serious moments that really, some of them I was kind of shocked. I was like, man, they're really touching upon that issue. Disney, what are you doing? You're tainting kids. But no, I just thought for overall, it's a very entertaining movie that just really just puts you into this world. You actually forget that you're watching a movie. And that's the biggest compliment I can give this movie. I was completely just relished from start to finish, just from the visual look of it. The comedic beats that work, I thought were really great, and it did add some type of interesting levity to the film, because Taika Waititi has a certain style of humor, and I like his style of humor, and like I said, for the most part, it worked, and it's all about timing, I'm telling you. And some of the timing, it killed me, and I was like, it's too good. So moving on from Taika and the writing and whatnot, the acting once again, everyone slips into, their appropriate shoes and does what they do. Chris Hemsworth, great as Thor. I've always found that he has that kind of godlike presence of a, Shakespearean caliber, like Joel said earlier. Tom Hiddleston as Loki. He's got that snakish, slick oil man type of feel to it, but just set in a Shakespeare type of accent where he will trick you and he will deceive you. Does he have a heart of gold? Does he not? He is definitely one of the most interesting anti-heroes because you just have no idea which way he will ever lean because he always tricks you. Anthony Hopkins isn't really in it that much. It's not really spoiling anything. It's just like he's there, but I mean he's not really in it that much. He's fine as Odin. He does his thing. Cate Blanchett as Hela. I thought she had a presence to her. Her character I thought was more interesting than her performance, but Cate Blanchett, to me, she can do no wrong. She's good in the role, but I do think that when you think about the ensemble cast, she is kind of put down to the bottom a little bit because you have the crazy antics of like a Jeff Goldblum, which I will say is the Grandmaster. He was such a delight to watch. Just talking about it, just makes me grin because just some of the lines he says when he's making fun of Asgard, I will just say that, which is very funny. Yes. It caught me off guard. No, he's really entertaining to watch. He almost seems like he fits perfectly with like this goofy trash planet as this Grand Master. Tessa Thompson, I thought she was really great. A lot of, Joel and I will disagree. I liked the subtlety to her character and why she shuts out people. It makes sense to me, and it actually provides for some of the more interesting kind of dark Norse mythology looking paintings I've seen, which once again,
The flashback was amazing.
Oh, those flashbacks were beautiful. You could actually freeze frame any of that and hang it up as a painting. It was just absolutely stunning, and that's why I have high respects for Taika because he's made great movies in the past, but I didn't know that he had a great visual eye as well. Going into the visual effects and the cinematography and just kind of the overall look again. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And what I've always recognized as these films keep coming out is that the visual effects, for the most part, keep upping their game. When you look at the Hulk in this movie versus when we saw him in the first Avengers, you can definitely tell there's a lot more detail in the face. You can see sweat. You can see creases in the face. It looks more realistic. It looks more like Mark Ruffalo. It's wonderful, jaw-dropping visual effects. And that gladiator fight was just awesome. I loved watching that. It just gets you amped up. And speaking of that, let's go into that. The action sequences I thought were the best in the Thor franchise. Once again, I don't know if Taika has ever read a Thor comic book, but it seems like he has, because not only does he utilize the actual God of Thunder with thunder and lightning, but he also utilizes that power to really exciting and inventive action sequences that I've really never seen from Thor up until this point. So it was exciting to see Thor actually use his powers, be the god of something, and just kick a lot of ass. Some of those sequences were just so well filmed and edited. You're just sitting there in your seat. You get amped up while watching them. It's just such a joy. And the last positive before I shoot over to Joel is the score. My God, it had this 80s retro vibe to it that I thought actually fit with the kind of loud, colorful tone of the movie, which is what Asgard has always been. So I actually thought it worked. And like Joel said, without giving away in context, the immigrant song from the trailer pops up and you get jazzed when you hear it. It's wonderful. That's about it, I believe, Joel. I think I hit on all the points. Yeah, and then I guess the ending credit scene, I have a theory of what that is. I have a theory of where that last Infinity Stone is. But we'll get nerdy for another time. But it's an end credit scene that's advancing the story. So that's all my positives for me. Joel, take it away. Is there anything I missed? Is there anything you're going to add on this? I'm curious because as the person that's mixed on these films, even though you like this one, I'm sure you have a different view on it than I do.
Actually, we do have a lot of the same ones here, the same positives. I think that this is a really impressive directorial effort from Waititi. I think that he handles a huge budget, $180 million, really well. And the visual effects, as you said, I mean, I'm just going to get to those first, but they're really impressive. And, it builds a world well. It treats the Hulk character as a photorealistic kind of entity in the shots, and it's just really impressive work. The performances are all pretty uniformly strong, I thought. Cate Blanchett's fine. I thought that she was more like, basically just kept thinking, oh wow, she looks like a punk rock singer. She looks like Ava Green to a degree that I think that Ava Green was originally in this role. Honestly, it's amazing how much she looks like her.
Yeah.
And she was fine. It's not. A lot of people are going crazy over this performance from her because, it's Cate Blanchett as a Marvel villain. I thought it was good. I didn't really think the character was all that interesting. To be honest, it's your tip. I mean, beyond the sibling stuff, so it was a typical kind of egomaniac kind of thing, or I guess psychomaniac, whatever. Anthony Hopkins had his nice little send off in a certain way, and thought he had a really powerful moment with them, and that was nice to see. Tessa Thompson was terrific. I think that she brought about 100% more to the performance than the page had, because there's a lot to this character that the movie ignores, particularly in regards to the character's sexuality, because this character is bisexual in the comic books, and openly, in a way that the movie did not portray. You got a little bit of that in like some background details of that flashback, but I didn't think about it in the moment. But I mean, and then the flashback. I just have to say, like, it looked like it was straight out of 300, and I mean that in a good way.
Oh, it was amazing.
It was amazing, and you were talking about how some of the scenes with backdrops kind of looking unreal and all that. That scene did not have that problem.
Now, granted, sorry to cut you off, but like, you're right. It has a 300 look, and it's like, it's apparent green screen, but the way the scene is constructed with the slow-mo and the music and the coloring and the shadows and the lighting, it just fits that type of 300 world.
Yeah, you basically come to love the artifice.
Exactly.
And you know it's artifice. You're aware of the artifice, but it's amazing fakeness, basically. It also reminded me of that shot in The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, I believe, where Gandalf comes down the hill with a bunch of people. There's certain callback to that. I mean, it's an amazing scene. I was sitting there with my mouth open. Like, that's how great it was. He clearly loved those kinds of scenes in 300 and learned from them. Mm-hmm. Rather than trying to imitate it, he achieved it. And I mean, it's one of the movie moments of the year for me. Everything about it. I mean, not only the fact that it's slow-mo and it's beautiful and it's very chiaroscuro, and all of that, it also tells an entire story.
It does. If you didn't know anything about Tessa Thompson's character, just showing that flashback, you would know everything in that little bit.
You learn everything, all of the context. I mean, when she says, the line of dialogue that she says as it comes back to the present is revealing itself, but I mean, you learn that anyway in the flashback. It's one of the most impressively mounted flashbacks. Flashbacks are generally pretty weak storytelling devices, but this one was not. We needed that to learn about her character, and it was great. And ruthless too. It was sad, very sad. So there's those. I think it's Chris Hemsworth's best work as the character so far. He was really impressive. There's something that Waititi brought out in him that he just looked like he was having a total blast. And he was completely dedicated to bringing all of these lines of dialogue to life in a really funny way. And I mean, he was funny. He had his rugged charm intact, as if it ever wasn't, honestly. But yeah, I think it's his most impressive work. And then let me think. Mark Ruffalo, thought he was solid. I thought that Tom Hiddleston was pretty good. It's not my favorite work that he's done as a character, simply because I thought he was exceptional in the first Thor movie. There were those introductory, notes where we get to learn about the nature of his character. Here, he's just kind of playing in the nature of the character, and that's really neat. So I like that. And Jeff Goldblum, a lot of fun. Basically, one of the most ruthlessly merciless characters in the MCU so far, but he's so much fun because he's like this laid back, kind of cheerful tyrant is what I called him in my review of the movie on my website, because he is jokey, but he's also, again, completely merciless. It's amazing how mean the guy is, but nice about it. And I thought that he straddled that line really well. So yeah, the performances are all exceptional. They're a major reason why I like this movie. Let me think. Is there anything else? The score, as you said, great stuff. Very creative. I know that they were like literally going for that. They were going for something that you'd remember, because they felt like the scores for the other movies sounded the same, and so they wanted to go for something different, and they did. It sounds completely different than other movies in this universe, and it's just such a fun time. It's I literally say it at the end of my review. I just said Thor Ragnarok is a lot of fun.
It really is, and just a couple more points to with the music. The only piece of music that I ever have remembered from the MCU is the Avengers theme, the soundtrack to Guardians, and now this. Like, it's very minimal because they don't actually try anything different for the scores, but I'm glad they were just like, you know what, Taika Waititi, you're kind of a bonkers dude. Let's make this film sound bonkers as well. And, I just thought it was a nice accompaniment to the movie, and it's just absolutely great. And
by the way, real quick, so I just want to add another thing, and I'm not going to give away any context, but are you familiar with Street Fighter?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so there's a moment where Thor gets all General M. Bison on the... I'm hoping you just understood me.
No, I understood you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I hope that everybody out there kind of takes it. There's a moment when I just had this huge grin on my face. It's during a scene where he's fighting a lot of, faceless, nameless soldiers of doom from Hela's army. But he does an M. Bison, and it's awesome. Anyway, I just had to point that out.
No, you're right. And it goes back to just the inventive action sequences that I've never seen from this character before. So I'm glad that someone actually made Thor a badass. And so, one last thing I forgot to mention in the negatives, because this is kind of crucial, and I'm definitely giving a point over to Joel for Hela's character. I appreciate her character. I appreciate the backstory. I actually do think it provides a lot of context to the kind of wool that's been over people's eyes for hundreds and thousands of years, given what she kind of reveals. However, I will give the leg up to Joel, because I thought about it as I walked out of the theater, but I completely just forgot about it as I was talking about it. Hela, besides a couple of intimidating scenes, she is a what's the word, Joel?
Generic?
She's an exposition.
Yeah. Oh,
she's
yeah.
basically,
I mean, every single line of dialogue she has is exposition, basically.
I must say that is a negative, no doubt, because every time she came on screen, it was always just something about someone else or a past.
They do cleverly make fun of that, and that's why I like this movie's sense of comedy more than you did. There's a moment where she kind of like goes on this long speech about who she is, and then she's talking to one of Thor's friends, and he said, "I don't know who you are," because it's sort of like this little joke about how a lot of people will just kind of listen to exposition, not really take it in, and then forget about it afterward because it's so dull, especially generic, exposition about a character's past like hers, the typical villain. And then you have this character reacting like, "I don't know who you are." And then she says, "Who I am, weren't you listening to me?" And I thought that was really funny.
Yeah,
so
but I do have to address that because she's an exposition mouthpiece, which negative, positive, whatever. So I'll let Joel have that one. So Joel, what is the final grade you're going to give for Thor Ragnarok, considering the fact that you thought the first one was fine and the second one was flat?
Yeah, so I would have given. I think I'm going to give this one and the first one the same, which is a B, solid B. I think it's entertaining. I gave the second one, I think, like a C minus or a C or something. So I didn't hate it, but certainly less effective than these two. And so yeah, Thor Ragnarok gets a B from me.
Even though you guys know that I'm a Marvel fanboy, I'm also not blind. I will not blindly give something an A unless I think it deserves it. I've only given a few Marvel movies an A. Captain America Winter Soldier, Captain America Civil War, Spider-Man Homecoming, believe it was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
I think you gave that one a B+, but nevertheless.
Okay, so I was about to go there. I've given most Marvel movies my highest grade I will ever go as a B+, unless I thought it deserved to be in the A category. As much as I love this movie, and I do actually love it, like there are sequences I still can't get out of my head. I thought it was a blast from start to finish. I thought there was a lot more depth than what most people are claiming it to have. I was never bored. However, I still think it's only a B+ movie, which is not a bad thing. I'm still in that 97% of Rotten Tomatoes that think of it as a positive movie. Joel is in that 97. Like, we think it's a positive movie. We don't have to, shout, "Oh, this is the best thing ever," and give it an A+ and move on. It's like, you have to really sit back and think, like, what deserves that A or A+ or A-? I mean, to give an example, like Captain America Civil War, that movie just took every single character in that story to a whole nother level and just really kind of caught me off guard on how much emotional intensity was breaking away these people, and that's why I gave it up there. Spider-Man, same deal. I had never seen Peter Parker adapted on the big screen like that, and it was just absolutely perfect, minus some flaws here and there, but I still went up there. But for the most part,
it's definitely no lick on Spider-Man: Homecoming. I mean, you remember my review, and I think very highly of that movie.
Exactly.
And,
so I just want people to know that, like, yes, Joel and I might differ on these movies, and yeah, I might go a little higher than him, but we're also not going to be like fanboys and be like, "Oh man, that's A+ all the way, baby, it's so awesome." It's like, no, let's take a step back, but I will say, definitely. Top 10 in terms of most entertaining movies I've seen this year.
Yes, yeah.
It is. It kind of reminded me of the energy of Spider-Man: Homecoming, where it was just I had a grin on my face from start to finish, and I really just enjoyed myself. So, yeah, B+ from me, B from Joel. So, what about you guys? What did you guys think of Thor Ragnarok? Please comment down below our voices and let us know. And speaking of Thor Ragnarok, Joel is doing the box office results for the weekend, and I, like the chump I am, have to guess this shit. So thank you, Joel, for making me quiver in my boots, which I have no boots, so I'm quivering just in general. I cannot believe that I have to even guess what 2 through 5 is, because I have no freaking clue. So can you give me any type of hint?
Yeah, so of course the Wednesday release was A Bad Mom's Christmas. Obviously Thor Ragnarok. LBJ was a semi-wide release. Lady Bird started its run. Last Flag Flying started its run. So, I mean, you can obviously count out those two. But, yeah, those are kind of the 5 that opened this week that were significant.
So thank you for the clues. My confidence is down at a bare minimum right now. I'm going to go ahead and say number one is obviously Jigsaw. Jigsaw had a surplus. No, Thor Ragnarok, obviously number one. Two, I'll go... Bad Moms was a really big surprise last year, so I think I'll go with Bad Moms Christmas as number two. I think I'll do Jigsaw still as number three. Shit, what was... Oh, Joel, why you do this to me?
Because I love you.
I know. I'm trying so hard, guys. Like, you guys know that, like, Joel and I we try to be film pundits, but guessers we are not at all. Maybe number four, Blade Runner 2049. Number five, The Foreigner. I'm done. Don't talk me out of it, Joel. Just give me the bad news.
Oh boy. Wow, you forgot a huge comedy that opened.
Oh, whoops. Wait, well, okay. I said Bad Moms Christmas at number two. What other one are you talking about?
Okay, so you got two wrong. You got the top three correct in like placement and everything.
Nice.
But so number five is Geostorm with 3 million.
So that was the comedy you were referring to.
Well, no, but okay. So came out the same day though. All right, so that has 3 million. Okay, this is depressing, man. For Warner Brothers, they're probably about to bounce back with Justice League, but man, ooh. All right. So domestically, it's at 28.8 million. And worldwide, it's at 182.4 million somehow because I guess they liked it or something. They just kept watching it. But it has a $120 million budget, so it's kind of struggling, let's just say. Because it's got to make, probably what, like 300 million? Maybe not that much,
I would say on average, maybe.
Yeah, maybe something like that. So, it could probably get there, like, if it makes any sort of money on video, but it's not great. Not great, Bob. Number four is Tyler Perry's Boo 2, A Medea Halloween, with 4.7 million. This is at a total of 43 million so far. It's got a $25 million budget. Worldwide, it's at 43 million. Wow, it's only made 382,000 in foreign markets. Anyway, obviously it's doing well. It's almost broken even. So, this is not one of his more impressive box office results, but it's still impressive because it's such a low cost.
I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm such a non-Tyler Perry fan. I'm not even joking. I completely forgot that was still in theaters.
Yeah, it's okay. And then, of course, you got the top three right, but we'll still talk about them. So Jigsaw made 6.7 million. It's at 28.9 million so far at a production budget of 10 million. So it's doing well. Let's just say it's worldwide. It's at 60 million. All right, number two is A Bad Mom's Christmas. It had a $21.6 million weekend. Worldwide, this is amazing. Okay, worldwide, it's at 28.2 million. Its production budget is 28 million. So it made its budget back. On the base level, it made its budget back, and so obviously it's going to have to make 56 million to break even, and then it spent quite a bit on marketing. I feel. For a comedy, so probably 100. Well, not maybe 100 million, maybe 75 million.
I would say 75 is probably tops for that movie.
Yeah, probably so. Which in which case it's gonna get there. I mean, it may not get there like super quickly, but it's gonna get there. With all the competition, it might struggle, but particularly considering Daddy's Home 2, which is the same exact movie, comes out next week. So then number one, of course. Is Victoria and Abdul... No, I'm just kidding.
Joel, I think all of our listeners just like scratch their heads because like, what the hell is that?
Okay, so... This is amazing. This is one of Marvel's best returns, honestly, worldwide-wise. In an opening weekend, I should say. So, it has a production budget, I mentioned it earlier, of $180 million. So... Domestically, it's at 121 million already. That was its weekend, huge weekend. Worldwide, it is at 427 million. So it's already broken even in its opening weekend. Because
and keep in mind, it did open up to 103 million last weekend in the foreign markets.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. So, 427 million, that's like 70 million more than it needed to make to break even. And of course, they probably spent about $100 million to advertise this. So it needs to make 460, and it's only 30 away from that. So it's going to maybe make that tomorrow. I would guess that it'll make back everything it needs to by like the half week.
And just to give you guys a little nugget of information, this is also surprising. The first Thor opening weekend, 65 million. Respectable. No one had ever heard of it, Marvel before, so it's fine. Thor: The Dark World, only 20 million more. It was 85. So now that we have a Thor movie topping its sequel with almost 40 million more is pretty impressive.
Literally twice, almost twice as much as the first movie.
Yeah,
it's insane. For Marvel, that's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. So, to report on the other ones that I made, Last Flag Flying did not do well. It opened in 4 theaters and it made $42,000.
Ooh, that's not good.
Yeah, $10,000 per theater. LBJ, semi-wide release. Not really, but sort of. It opened in 659 theaters, and it made $1 million. So not great, but whatever. It opened at number 14. Oh, and then Last Flag Flying was number 40. So that's not good. I doubt that Richard Linklater cares, though. But here is the great news. Guys, I'm going to be reviewing this movie in a couple of weeks. I've already seen it, and I can tell you that I love it. I'll just not go further into it. But Lady Bird opened in 4 theaters this weekend, and it made $375,000. $93,000 a theater.
Yeah, that's really good.
It broke records. It's the biggest opening in 4 theaters ever, I think, or something like that. So this is amazing. It's a masterpiece. It's one of the best films of the year. Maybe even better than that. That's a little tease. So I'll be talking about that movie on the 17th because it opens in Dallas then. So expect that review to be high praise. But I'm not surprised by this, to be completely honest, because people are really excited about this movie. This movie has a lot of visibility in the indie markets, and it's starting to bleed over into the mainstream markets. People are starting to notice. I'm actually going to go check on it again on Rotten Tomatoes right now because it's got an impressive. So it's at 100% on Rotten Tomatoes with 81 reviews at an 8.7 out of 10 average rating. Of course, the average rating, if you want to actually determine some sort of quality or perceived quality from critics, always pay attention to the average rating. Kind of discard the 100% because the average rating is important. 8.7 out of 10 is up there with the great films of all time. It's very rare for a movie to keep this kind of track for this long. And the reason that I say that is because just a few days ago, when it was obviously also at 100%, it was at 8.6 out of 10. So it's only getting higher, and it's hard to make the average rating go higher, even with good reviews, because the more you add, the more diluted it becomes, the harder it becomes to raise that. And so it's amazing. I mean, this movie is reaching a kind of consensus that is amazing. Even Armand White loved this movie. So that gives you an idea. Even Rex Reed loved
that mofo, Armand White, if you guys want to know who he is, he's the one person that gave Toy Story 3 a negative review and everyone else loved it. So he's that guy.
Yeah, and Rex Reed loved this movie. He's kind of a curmudgeon, so that's a big thing. I think Cole Smithy, who's one of the most famous curmudgeons out there that people don't really know about, that is an oxymoron. Anyway, I think he loved it. So, I mean, this thing is reaching a consensus that's beyond Moonlight last year, and stuff like Manchester by the Sea, which, you know, didn't keep that 100%. So it's interesting to see how so many people have been piling behind this movie, but not really, because as I'll get into it in 2 weeks, it's amazing. So we'll get into that more in depth later on.
We'll get into Joel's review and his boner in 2 weeks on Lady Bird. It should be fantastic. No, you know what's really funny is, like, Joel's been praising this movie ever since he saw it. He saw it super early, and so as soon as he got out of the theater, he always lets me know how movies are. Man, he hasn't shut up about this movie, which is great. Like, I'm glad that, like, Joel, who's one of the hardest people to please, is claiming this as, like, one of the best he's ever seen. Like, the anticipation's through the roof, and I cannot wait for it.
To give people an idea. So my review is still currently a work in progress. It's because there's a lot to talk about. And this is not going into any sort of detail about the movie because I don't want to talk about it in detail yet. But my, general, like, average review written is about maybe 550 to 575 words. That's the usual that I can crank out in about an hour or so. When I see a movie that's easy to write about. This one's one of the tougher ones to write about, and I mean that in every good sense of that term, because there is so much to unpack in this movie. And so right now, I think I'm at like 530 words or something, and I haven't even gotten to the main points of the plot. That's because there's so much to unpack with this character. And I just haven't been this, like, enthusiastic about a movie in a long time. Since Moonlight, really.
Joel, as your editor, you need to tighten up that shit.
It could be like 800 words, honestly, by the end of it, because there's a lot to unpack in the plot, and I haven't gotten to that yet. So, I mean, it's just so good. So I'll get into that more in depth over the 4-year anniversary episode, actually. So that's going to be exciting. But that's basically it, guys. That's the box office news. I guess I'll go over a couple other things. There were a couple of big weird percentage raises. No real huge drops. I guess All I See Is You, which is that movie with Blake Lively that kind of came out unbeknownst to everybody, dropped 96% because it lost 230 theaters. It dropped from 30 to 57, and it made $5,000. But the weirdest one, and I kid you not, this jumped from 53 to 34, was Leap, a Weinstein Company movie. This is interesting because it added 48 theaters to its run out of nowhere and made $82,000 a year for a total of $21 million. And it rose 245.6% in the process. I'm glancing through here. That's pretty much it. I just want to say one thing before we wrap this section up. I saw Only the Brave this past weekend. I don't know why this movie's tanking. It's an absolutely just fantastic film. Please go support smaller movies. Yeah, I need to see that as well. The other big rise, whatever, is one that you've seen, Chase. You saw it at Diff. That movie Dealt about the I think he's blind. Blind magician. Okay. So it had opened a couple weeks ago in limited release. I think in 3 theaters, and it had not even made, like, we wouldn't see it on the list back then, but now it rose from 88 to 50. Made $11,000 this week. So for a total of $21,000, rose 297.7% in the process. So that's pretty neat, making a little money. I'm pretty impressed with some of them, and then not really surprised by others. But hey, listen, guys, it's how the box office goes every single week, and there's always gonna be some surprises, and then be some who was like, "What? I never heard that." So yeah, that's the box office results, guys. So that's pretty much it for the show. Thank you for listening. And so before we wrap up, Joel, what are we doing next week? Yeah, next week is going to be Murder on the Orient Express, which is has a lot of people in it, and it's directed by Kenneth Branagh. Speaking of Kenneth Branagh. So I'm excited for that. Is there anything else we're reviewing?
Listen, I would review Daddy's Home too, but I do have a castration that day, and I really do not want to miss that. Also, I might have a beating by like a Christmas elf. I don't want to miss that either. And I also need to watch Paint Dry on my knee. So as long as I can accompany those things, Joel, and squeeze the movie in, we might review it. But I'm going to say for safe keeps, we will not be reviewing that.
I think I might have an extra review, or I might ask you if I can extra review The Square, which is one of the foreign language submissions, and it's from a director I really like. So we might review that. We'll see how everything shakes out. So
yeah, but the main review that we want to do for you guys is the Murder on the Orient Express remake. You know, remaking older films is always tricky.
Especially Sidney Lumet films.
Exactly. So, like, we like the trailers. We will see how the movie is. So I'm excited to do that, and excited to finally see Daisy Ridley do something other than Rey herself. So I'm yeah. Next week should be a lot of fun, and of course, you know, the following week. Justice League and 4-year anniversary, say it isn't so. But that will do it for this week's episode, guys, of Real Me and Colin Movie Podcast. I want to thank you guys for listening. You guys are always awesome. Joel, where can the people find you online?
Yeah, so you can find my writing at joelonfilm.com. I actually reviewed 3 other movies, if I can briefly mention those. So there was Amityville: The Awakening, which is the latest movie about the Amityville legend. It's pretty bad. It kind of tries to comment on it by treating all of the other movies as existing in its universe, which is a clever idea, but it doesn't do anything with it. So that was pretty bad. Creep 2, which was it's sort of a sequel, mostly a companion piece to the 2015 movie Creep. And that one was pretty good. I like that. It shows that basically the sociopath at the center of it, played by Mark Duplass, has met his match in a certain way, and it's really interesting. And then also Wonderstruck, which I mentioned earlier that I would mention later. It was okay. It's the story. It's the sort of dueling stories of a couple of kids looking for parental figures, and of course those stories connect in a pretty predictable way. I found it okay. I know a lot of people love this movie, but I was a little underwhelmed. So those are the 3 that I reviewed. I also have writing available to read at DallasMovieScreenings.com, although I didn't have anything this week. And you can follow me on Twitter at RealJoelCopling and on Letterboxd at JCopling.
Yeah, and you can follow me on Twitter at RealChaseLead. That goes toe-in-toe with Joel's over there. And, of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to watch other reviews that we don't review on this show. And then, of course, for this show, spread it around, share it, comment, like it, whatever you guys do. Whatever you guys do to, like, spread viruses on the internet, make us a part of your virus-spreading activities. And tell people that Reel Me In it's a good little movie podcast. Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, we are everywhere. And then all those links that Joel mentioned and what I mentioned are in the links in the description below. As far as the outro music goes, it is done by my friend's band Fervent Roze, so check them out, link in the description below as well. Speaking of them, let's play them out. And hey guys, listen, if you made it through this entire movie podcast and you're not a movie fan, well, hopefully we convinced you to be one. I'm Chase, that's Joel. We'll see you guys next week for another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast. Let's play that music. Peace out, everyone. You guys are badass.
Bye.